agus fáilte Clór Community Focus. Hello and welcome to tonight's Community Focus programme. This programme is sponsored by Eason's of Main Street, Cavan and Pearse Street, Mullingar. This programme is dedicated to all things community in County Cavan. If you would like to comment on the show or have your community initiative or issue featured, please email drumnamedia@gmail.com or contact us via our Facebook or Twitter. Now, tonight's guest, he's very unaccustomed to TV, aren't you?
I'm going to freeze.
He's going to freeze up.
I'm going to freeze up. Folks might know me from the other show, Forum Views.
Daniel Downey.
My first time on as a guest, so it's going to be a bit surreal and weird. But thanks for having me on, Laura.
You might try and take over the show, though.
Maybe. So how do you feel doing the show? No, go ahead with the questions. You drive the show.
Yes, I will, absolutely. Daniel, you're here because you're involved in Cavan Community Forum, of course, and in the Peace Project.
Yeah.
And as part of the Peace Project, you are going out doing road shows at the moment, trying to get people's views on what's happening in the county and the issues that are affecting people in County Cavan. So very fitting to this programme, absolutely.
Slightly, somewhat, yeah.
First of all, if we would just go back and talk about the Community Forum and the role of the Community Forum.
Yeah. Well, the Community Fora or forums were set up back in the early 2000s under Better Government Programme, which is basically to give a non-political or non-local authority voice to community groups across the country. So Cavan Community Forum is one of the more successful ones. We're a separate company. We're made up of non-councillor and non-council representatives from community groups. We have currently 520 community groups registered with us. So that's a sample of community groups in Cavan. It ranges
They're all just from County Cavan, all those
just
groups.
County Cavan, yeah. And it ranges from everything you can imagine, Aikido to GEA to even just kind of sustainable development or bowls or, not just sports, it's everything, social inclusion. So, it's very good. It's very good. A very powerful tool for community voice as well, because then the community that get involved in the forum then have representatives in all the funding bodies like the Peace Body or Breffni Integrated, and so it is a democratic tool to try and make decisions in the community. Yeah.
And do all community groups have to get involved, or how do they get involved?
Well, just check our Facebook page or our website on cavancommunityforum.ie, and
is there a charge for groups?
There isn't, no. And in fact, if you're applying for funding, you have to be a member of the forum. If it's peace funding or council small grants or something like that, you do have to be a member of the forum. That's one of the stipulations. All you need is to have a constitution that guides you. You need an officer board, so just a chairman, secretary, and treasurer, and a bank account, and you can set up as a member of the forum. It's very simple, and the benefits are you get supports in funding applications if you're not sure where to go, how to sign an application.
Or even what funding is actually available to a group.
Well, the answers to that question are getting less and less each year, as we well know, but we still have a lot out there that's hidden pretty much, but we can give it to the community groups. Yeah.
So there's some privately funded group monies that are available as well to groups that I'm sure you can direct them to as well. So in doing a constitution for community groups, is that something that you would support community groups to actually develop? Yeah,
we can do that. I mean, there are set framework constitutions that you can it's kind of just a white paper constitution that you can adopt, as long as it abides by certain regulations, like, UN Declaration of Human Rights and Agenda 21 is another one. They're kind of set regulations you have to mention, and when you mention these and adopt these in your constitution and abide by them practically, it means that you're a good group. You're not going to be socially isolating anyone. You're not going to be racist. You're not going to be disrespectful or criminal in any way. So it just means that we have people on the straight and narrow, and it's a good guide for community groups to develop within that framework. Yeah.
So you would provide samples of the constitution that they could actually adopt. Because I know for some community groups that might be a bit of a stumbling block. They would say, what's the constitution and what's going to be involved in actually putting this together.
Yeah. But
so that's
we can do
good
that.
You provide that. And do you, what would the commitment then be from groups that get involved?
Very little commitment as such. We do encourage groups. I mean, it's the Cavan Community and Voluntary Forum, so you can't really put commitments on volunteers, for example. Their own individual projects are what we seek to tap into. So all we request from them is that they feed information to us so that we can feed it back out. It's a network, essentially. and we try and gather the information, spread the information back out so people can celebrate the rich community work that's going on in the county, and try and be aware of what's challenging communities as well. And that's really what the forum is all about, trying to support communities in whatever form they want to take. So there's no real commitment as such, because that would be putting an extra burden on people who are already giving the free time to really valuable projects in their communities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of support for the communities and valuable they are, as part of the Peace Project, if we go on to talk about that now, you're have developed, is it 12 roadshows that you plan to do around County Cavan?
Yeah.
And as part of that, you're going out to communities and trying to identify what issues are affecting the communities within the county, and then trying to develop actions that, you can actually act upon and follow through, and that are measurable, and that you can actually deliver on as well. Yeah. And you've already had one or two of them, have you?
We've had one so far. We did a roadshow up in Black Lion, which we chose because it was one of the more difficult areas. It's a rich community area, but it's very isolated from the rest of Cavan. And the community groups identified that. They called it the Glengevlin Wall, like a Berlin Wall between... They're on the west side, that's all right. But it's amazing that we have a physical boundary that does affect funding. It affects even people interacting with the rest of the county, that it's such a burden to drive over that. And some of the, we'd such a rich harvest of material from people who came on the night. We thought it was going to be our weakest because it's our weakest area for input, but in fact it turned out to be amazing, absolutely amazing. We have reams and reams of information gathered on the night. We anticipated it was going to be about 2 hours long. It took us 4 hours because people just wanted to keep discussing and not just bringing up issues, but also bringing up solutions to those issues for each other. So it's something that's practical. It's something that's not just a talking shop. It's where we're identifying the issues and finding out how can we solve them here and now, and how can the forum bring it forward to solve it at maybe a local authority level or a funding level.
So it's nearly like a workshop as such, in that people were trying to develop solutions to all these problems within their community. And in terms of was it well attended? Yeah. We had we had groups. It was intended for Black Lion. We had groups coming from Swanland Bar, from Glengevlin, Dowra as well. So it contained that whole sweep. Then we had some from Leitrim and cross border in Fermanagh, which was very good. Which is something it's difficult to try and tap into, because community is so different on each side of the border. How it's funded, how it's developed. So to try and have people come across is it's rich, because one person's alternative experience can help develop our community here a lot more, and vice versa. So it was a great sharing opportunity for people, and good networking opportunity for people too. And did those people attend that because they felt part of the community there? Yeah. They've a very, very strong community organisation, the West Cavan Community Council, and they've been on the go for 29 years now. So I knew that if I could tap into that, then it would be able to reach into the other community groups. Quite often some areas you get where community groups just develop in isolation, but thanks to the West Cavan Community Council, they don't do that. They develop together, learn from each other, and I think without them it may have been a failure. But that's the idea of these roadshows, is to use the strength of the community groups. From working before in the community sector, older people were traditionally quite good at supporting events and giving their voice, and their opinion, and they would always be very, very strong and very good at attending. How would you find it in terms of attendance? The demographic was difficult, because again we see that replication of older people in the community are the drivers there in West Cavan. But there are quite a few young people that are starting to appear, and usually they're people who have been very active in employed life who suddenly become unemployed. They want to keep a routine or keep active in some way, and these are the people that are the younger generation volunteers who seem to be coming out with a voice. And that's something that we're trying to promote in Cavan Community Forum as well, is that there's a huge groundswell of unemployed people out there. They have a relevant voice, and they don't have to be victims of apathy. They can use the likes of Cavan Community Forum or these Peace Tree roadshows, come out, give their voice and see what they can get involved in. So, for example, there's community groups that were at that roadshow that never met as well.
and people were sharing ideas between each other. Even though they're from the same region, they just hadn't had contact with each other. So it was a good spin-off in that regard. But yeah, the demographic is an issue that we have to address. But thankfully it's changing a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
It can be something that's quite difficult though to change and to attract people from different demographics. And I think we have photographs anyway. We might just go to talk about the first maybe some of the issues that were identified and talk through some of the solutions. I know that we have some of the pictures of. Yeah,
that's well. I mean, just there's John Paul Feely from he's one of the councillors up there. Sandy Holland in the green jacket there is he runs one of the local development companies there, and it's just that the idea is to share. It's just to share ideas. So it was good. That's Jerry Fitzpatrick. He's the chairperson of Cavan Community Forum, just explaining what the forum is, what it does, what its capacity is to come forward, because it does have limited resources, limited capacity, but we can work within that to help. There's some Egypt talking.
Who is that?
Owl Egypt, looking for attention as usual. But yeah, it was good because we had a good variety of people there. You know, we had some young, some old, some very smiley people as well. And that's the thing; it was quite light humoured as well. And that was really enjoyable because it was. It's important that community actions. You're talking about issues, and you're talking about challenges, and sometimes it can get quite heavy, you know, and it can put people off going to community, active meetings. Or when you say meetings, people think boring, but we're talking about like large issues. What can we do? What can we make our community better?
Yeah, so it's more of a workshop really, and a chance for people to talk, and it's probably therapeutic for some people because they get to tell what the problems are in their community. Well, and
after 4 hours, I hope so. Yeah. Yeah. It was therapeutic for me. I went away energized, completely energized. Coming up to 11 o'clock at night after a long day, I didn't feel like sleeping at all. It was fine. Absolutely fine. So yeah, there is a great amount of energy out there. It's just a matter of trying to facilitate that, tap into it, and make sure people can share it. Yeah.
Well, even a good attendance like that and a lot of solutions on problems and issues coming from it shows, that it's an active community, and there is a lot of community spirit within the county and within that region.
Yeah, there's a huge amount. I think there are some there's some other photos there showing the sheets of solutions, but there's there's just so much feedback that came out. Each solution each issue has more solutions, so when you've just so much information that just spills out of each issue that's discussed. The big ones that hit were, for example, representation, because West Cavan is now part of another political constituency. So now they don't have a voice. It's just swallowed with Sligo, Leitrim, South Donegal. So West Cavan people feel quite aggrieved at that. And the other one was the bus transport issue, because the bus link has been cut. And that's going to affect community groups across the board as well, up the neck of Cavan, as they call it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but it was good. It was a good consultation workshop and just a get together, and you could just call it a gathering. It's a gathering of people to try and find the issues. But the hard part now is to bring it forward.
Next year's gathering.
Yeah, although we do have talks with the council to try and link these in with the gathering. Right. There's 12 roadshows altogether. They'll be spread across the county. Next one is in the Rail Tug Centre in Kilnalek on the 23rd of this month, and then after that we have Kingscourt and Ballina before the end of the year. We have 8 next year, and it'll finish with a Lekela conference, in which we hope to get all of this information and all the community groups who participate and bring them together.
And what are you going to do with the information? Is it going to be compiled into a research document?
It will, yeah. Each roadshow will comprise of a chapter of a research document, but there's, again, I don't think there's any point in just writing documents and filing them and being forgotten, so we have to act on some of these. So some of the points, for example, are, funding, for example. You need, for private funding, it's 90% funding and you need 10% match funding if it's a private project. But for community, you get 75%, but you need to fork up 25% of the funding. So that's a big issue. Communities unfairly being discriminated from a funding point of view. So we took that, and now we can act on it.
Funding with
the likes of Breffni Integrated, for example, or Cavan Monaghan Leader funding Leader funding uses that criteria, and it does hamper community groups from ever trying to apply. So what we're going to have to do is try and get our representatives. We own or we have ownership on a third of the board of Breffni Integrated, so we can move to try and change that now. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just leave it there for the moment, Daniel, and we'll
sure.
go to a short commercial break.
Great stuff.
Well, I was told we were going to a break, but sure,
Welcome
stay
back.
on chatting. That was a really short commercial break, all right.
Pat Short here. You're watching Cavan TV.
Welcome back. I'm still here with Daniel. Couldn't get rid of him.
How's it going? Still here, but yeah, what were we talking about? Peace and reconciliation and
the
the
funding
roadshows.
issues. Yeah. So funding was identified as one of the main issues facing community groups at the moment.
Well, from that point of view, and also what was spoken of as peace fluff. You know, some funding can be a little bit tokenistic. It's a bit like tick the box. So, you know, we fed that back at the peace consultation this morning for the next 6 years going forward, and that's been taken on board. It will be changed. It'll be more results based rather than, you know, trying to get a Protestant group and a Catholic group to go bowling together and not talk about themselves. Now we'll get them to sit down and start talking about themselves and work through it. That way, you know, the idea of peace funding is that you leave a legacy behind you of a peaceful society. That if you remove Gardaí and local authorities, and if you remove government, that community groups will still be able to get along with each other and identify with each other. So we need to try and work on that in the next 6 years. But these roadshows are part of that in the next 16 months. Yeah.
We have Dave actually has some of the photographs now of the issues that had emerged from the workshop, so we won't be able to read all that.
No, but that just goes to show that, you know, there is a rich amount of information there just from one roadshow. And each one of those small posters come off is one issue, and then each bubble within that is solutions to that issue. So it's 8 main issues we managed to target down. So there's some of the issues there. There's an apathy in communities. How do we get rid of that? The peace fluff that we just talked about. Immigration is a huge problem for West Cavan, always has. Garda presence is a huge difficulty because they rely on the Manorhamilton Garda station because it's closer, but now they've been told they have to rely on Ballyconnell, which has been degraded. But from Ballyconnell to Black Lion, for example, is twice the distance over mountains. So the response time is ridiculous. That would be a major concern for people, particularly
older people, you know, like to see that the local guards driving by the house at least, or some sort of presence in the area.
So we're going to feed in that the criteria should be not distance, which is the present criteria, but it should be response time. That's more important, or not county boundaries, should be response time, and that's the most important thing.
We have some of the solutions coming up now.
That's the peace stuff. So some of the solutions were to change our criteria.
What was the main peace problem?
Well, that it's tokenistic a little bit.
So it's more like, if you're having an event, make sure that there's one Protestant in the room at least. That it should be more about the social.
Or even not just ticking boxes, what results are going to come from that, you know. And you do face it when you run these roadshows as well. When, you know, I pick up the phone and I ask somebody to come to it, you know, you're going to get people going, yeah, but it's just a talking shop. It's just getting into a room and talking. But you have to try and sell that to them, and you have to try and assure them that there is actually a result coming from this, not just some report that's going to be filed away. we will make the representation, we will make the changes on the special policy committees in the local councils, we will feed up to our national, and we will affect it at a national level as well. So, you know, it is trying to mobilise change, and now more than ever we need to try and do that, you know, so yeah.
Absolutely. We have now the social issues.
This was the apathy and lack of celebration. One of the main things here was talking about recessionary stagnation, and how you know, today's children is tomorrow's society, for example, and children aren't engaging. We talked about this earlier, that, you know, the younger generation are not activating in the community. When they think of civic duty, you know, it sounds like something quite boring, onerous. So if they're not engaging like that, you're going to have a future community society that is completely inactive and doesn't do anything.
So what would have been the solutions identified there by people taking that as an example?
Well,
how do you get young people involved?
Not to rip off an idea from the council, but we need to rebrand. We do. We desperately need to brand community to make it look a little more fun. And that doesn't mean take what community is and sell it as fun. We need to change it to suit the younger generation. So community events and activities, we need to highlight more things like fairs and festivals. That'll be good fun, you know, things like that. And we're trying to do that slowly but surely, you know.
If you take like the likes of the Balturbet Festival as well, and the Pumpkin Festival, they're quite young in you know, well, young people love attending them because the fancy dress element to it and music. So, I mean, they're good examples of two festivals that should.
One other example, one of our steering group members on the forum, Kathleen Duffy, she's heavily involved in the Virginia show, the agricultural show, which just attracts families and families and families. And, you know, I would have thought, 3 years ago, I would never have gone to an agricultural show. I would have thought, oh, it's an agricultural show, you know, looking at cows and stuff. But when I went as part of the community roadshow, it was fantastic. Absolutely great crack.
There's a lot more at a show, isn't there?
Yeah.
Dave saying the sheep too. But there's a lot more. Like there's.
But that's the thing. We need to make community events a lot more than just talking about issues or, you know, kind of talking about what our group's doing in a little bubble. We need to try and make it a little more fun. We need to market it and brighten it up a bit.
Exactly how to market it. How
we need Cavan TV out there a bit more in it. That's what we need. Yeah. But yeah, that was one of the things that came up hugely. Yeah. Young people engaging.
Yeah. Well, the next one now is the local business. What was that about?
Well, there's a few different elements here. West Cavan falls into a crack basically between different areas which are funded heavily or invested in heavily. So, for example, Sligo is quite invested, and then when you go north, you have Enniskillen, and then Cavan, Central Cavan. So West Cavan really doesn't have a huge investment potential, unless you look at tourism. If you take out Doonaree Forest Park, everything that carries Cavan tourism is in West Cavan.
Yes,
West Cavan carries all, but yet there's a disproportionate amount of investment into that. So we would engage with business groups, we'd engage with the council in trying to promote West Cavan as the main tourist element. The other thing was broadband as well, so we would engage with Interreg, for example, to try and get them to roll out better broadband in the area, because it's absolutely diabolical. And unless you have
broadband, you're not going to attract the business.
Yeah. Because there is a good potential of having online businesses set up there in the community, because there's training workshops being rolled out for IT skills, but what's the point in it if nobody can use broadband?
It does have advantages there in that it's close to Cavan, it's close to Sligo, and it's close to the north.
It could be, that's one of the solutions, it could be a hub between the three locations, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, our next one is representation.
That was one of the big ones.
Obviously for the last one that we were just talking about.
Well, we talked a good bit about that one. That took up about 45 minutes actually of talk. Of course, West Cavan have lost their representation nationally. Now they're part of a larger Sligo, it's called Sligo Leitrim constituency. Even the wording leaves out West Cavan and South Donegal. So it really is, it's diabolical. There was no consultation put forward. It was just a snap decision that was declared. So it's just a directive handed down. So Cavan Community Forum have drafted a letter to the department and to Phil Hogan, who's responsible. His department is responsible, and also the County Council have done that as well. So we're just awaiting a response back from them. So it's just a matter of lobbying and trying to get that change put into place. But there are mechanisms, and we're going to start doing it. Yeah.
Maybe about the bus route as well was lost in that area, and is that something
that was under infrastructure? We've probably seen that in South in the last couple of weeks. The bus route was just simply cut. Mm-hmm. Again, no consultation or anything like that. It's
probably a fact that they don't have representation.
Yeah. But again, you could, at least local authorities or maybe Bus Éireann could actually go up and just literally try out a roadshow in a local community hall and say, we're considering the bus route, can you come out and tell us why you'd like us to keep it? I mean, that would cost the guts of maybe 100 or 200 euros to do that, which is peanuts for a company like that. So really, the likes of Bus Éireann should have done that before just cutting. It's that kind of community seems to be the getting the brunt of all the cuts. We've been cut hugely in the last few years, and but we don't have a firm representation to try and say even that we disagree with it, never mind fight it. So I guess that's where these roadshows and Cavan Community Forum can come into play. Yeah.
And give people that voice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's good work. What was another issue?
Infrastructure was another one, but that kind of
had that up when we were told
roads,
anyway a little bit
and also
that.
Kind of broadband came into it as well. We talked about apathy, and we talked about the funding and stuff like that, and actually the emigration was a huge one as well, and that that's trying to invest in.
That's a national problem anyway, and that's something that's going to be coming up with all the workshops. Apparently our immigration is up as high as it was during the famine.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's the first time that even the population has stopped growing since 1992. But West Cavan the population never grew, so they never benefited from the Celtic Tiger. So really, they, more than anywhere else in Cavan, need some kind of investment. But again, the solutions to that come from the solutions of the other portions that, if business is invested, if there's broadband, it will attract people to stay or move there as well. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something to look into. Yeah, but it's a huge problem, crippling problem for the area.
Yeah. Massive problem, I suppose, for the country, and trying to identify solutions for that will be difficult. Solutions that are really going to work. The
other one was the Garda presence we discussed, but again, to say that you can't use Manorhamilton, for example, and the closest Garda station is Ballyconnell when you have a major prison on your doorstep. And especially with recent events in the newspapers, that you have security issues with that prison on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
Some of the locals were very humorous to say that when someone escapes from the prison, they're not going to be around here because they want to get as far away as possible. But again, the damage that could be done on the route, or the deterrent that a prisoner may have to escape if he knows there's guards there. But a prisoner wanting to walk out of Loughlin House need only remember that the closest guard in response is Ballyconnell, so he's got a good 40 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes to get away from Loughlin House. It's not a deterrent, it's not acceptable, and something that the locals really do want changed.
Daniel, on that note, we'll have to end it there. Thank you very much.
Not at all, no problem. Thank you.
Fantastic work. And where can people just quickly contact you if they're interested in attending the workshops? And if people even want to send in their issues, can they even email their issues into
If you're from a region if you're from any region, I'll fit you into a workshop. So if you're from west of West Cavan, you fit into the Black Lion Roadshow, or east of West Cavan, the Belturbet Roadshow or Kilishandra Roadshow.
But even if people couldn't actually attend the workshop, would you still welcome them sending in their issues or their solutions?
And we'll include, absolutely. Perfect. Email, telephone, text message even. So my contact details are ddowney@cavancoco.ie, and also 086 3512 308. And if you want to drop into us as well, we have a kind of a community drop-in. It's not a centre, but we have an office. It's got an open door policy, Monday to Friday 9 to 5, in Cana House behind St. Phelim's Boys' School, which is beside the bus station. So do pop in, folks, if you have any issues, and we'll take them on board and bring them into this report and act on them if we can.
Great. That's brilliant.
Thanks
a million, Daniel. That's all for this week, and thanks for watching the show, and we'll see you next week.